Hey everybody, I have been thinking a little bit lately just about some of the personal, emotional, mental, spiritual wounds that I've had over my lifetime. And I wanted to just read you something that I wrote about when we all get wounded in my journal last year. It says, "All wounds leave somewhat of a scar. In today's society, scars seem to be an ugly thing, but scars are just a part of life that serves as reminders of who we are and who we have become. Scars are there because we're human. They leave us changed, but they also remind us that we are healed. All scars are formed from wounds. The bigger the scar, the bigger the wound was. The bigger the scar, the longer the wound took to heal." You know, I look back over the course of my life and I see several times in my life that I was wounded. You know, I can start from just even in high school. There was just a time in my life where there was things being said about me that left a big wound. And it affects me even today. I find things that I can pinpoint that I do now in my life, I can pinpoint them back to that time. And I can even think about when I wrote this about a year ago, my husband and I had something that was just going on that was bringing up stuff to the surface. And we were wounded in our spirits just from life circumstances. And you know, and I look back at the scar that we have from these things, and I could think that it was ugly, and I can be hurt by it, and I could be bitter by all those things. Or I can take and I can look at that scar, and I can be like, God, you know what? You're healing that scar. And not only is He healing the scar that we felt from the wound, we can be healed from the very thing that caused us to be wounded. Like in my case, in high school, you know, there were times where I was just made fun of just because I was different, because I stood out, because I had different beliefs about dating and about the words that I used. And so I was kind of set apart and made fun of for those things. And it left a scar that made me feel that I was inferior. And even to this day, when somebody makes me feel inferior to them, I rise up and I get offended sometimes, and I get a little bit of an attitude towards that person. Not because the person necessarily did anything to deserve it, but because that person somehow made me feel inferior. And so I can get wounded from somebody, but really it's my wound of feeling inferior and not letting God heal me at the core of who I am. And so not only does that scar remind me that God has brought me through something, but it also reminds me that God is healing me from the inside out, and that I no longer have to worry or have to react a certain way because of my wound, but I can act whole and I can react from healing and from God's love. And so next time you're wounded and you see that scar forming, I just hope that you will look back at whatever happened and that you will see that it's not so much the wound that matters, but the healing that God has brought you through. And I pray that that scar is not seen as something ugly or something bad, but it's seen as a time in your life where God was able to take you from where you're at and bring you to a whole nother place in your relationship with Him, in your relationship just to yourself and who you are, and in your relationship to those around you.